Hey everyone, thank you so much for tuning in today. As always, my name is Goliath and I'm the artist, author and creator of the El Goliath Tarot deck. This is the box, the lid. If you're new to my channel, thank you so much for coming and checking out my work and checking out what I do. All my links will be down in the video section below. You can check it out. So I'm going to jump straight into this video. This is a video that I've been thinking about doing for a while, and it's very different to the other videos that I've been doing, which were just kind of like more, Tarot 101 class for free kind of thing and getting into that. This is more about how to make a tarot card deck. And I've been wanting to and thinking about making a video like this. First up, I think I'm going to be dividing this video into two parts. And the first part of this video will be the creative side of it and getting started. And the second part of this video, part two, will be more of publishing, printing, and more of the logistics side of it. So if you'd like to stick around, maybe it's the time to go put the kettle on, make a cup of tea. I'll try and keep these videos as condensed as possible. I don't edit my videos, I just do one take. I can hear my dog, can you hear that? That's my dog, Happy, she's drinking, she's thirsty. So yeah, I think we'll just kind of jump straight into it. So the reason why I wanted to do this is because a couple of days ago, I went online and I had a look to see what videos are out there for people that are new to the tarot or new to this type of thing and would like to consider making a tarot deck. And I was just shocked at how little there actually was and how much in content that there actually was for someone to get started. And I remember when I was starting out, it was really, really difficult. It was like everything's top secret and no one would help me and I didn't understand what to do and I didn't know the process. And I think as far as anything that's concerned with like making a product and making money, people get very quiet about it. And it's kind of like something that they like to keep to themselves. And that's completely fair enough. I understand the reasons why they do that. But if you're out there and you legitimately want to make something and you're looking for ways to help in the community, I just see such little help out there. So without further ado, I'll just jump straight into it. If you've got any questions for me, send them through to my Instagram because I'm happy to answer those questions if that's fine. And before I go on, this video is my truth and it's my opinions about my process. I can't speak for another artist on their process and I can't tell you what is the best way to go. I only know the way that I went, and for a long time I kind of like stumbled in the dark. I didn't really know what I was doing. I knew that I was doing something, but I didn't know what I was doing. And I'm going to get into that a little bit later on. And that's okay if you don't, because hey, we've all got to start somewhere, whether you're making a deck for yourself that you just want to use in your personal home, in your space, or you're making something that is going to be mass marketed to the whole world. And whatever it is that you want to do, I'm sure that you want to put your best foot forward and you want to make something that you can be really proud of and be happy with. And also maybe if you're just out there and you're curious about the process on how to do this, and you've maybe you're not thinking about making a tarot deck, that's okay too. You might get something out of it. And I will get to the big questions like self-publish, whether it's worth going down, the pros and the cons of going down the road of getting a book deal and how to get a book deal. And there's lots of videos out there. The process for making a tarot deck is very similar to making a book, except there are quite a lot of complicated issues when you're making things like a box and you've got to do layouts and designing and stuff like that. And we'll look at the programs that I used for that later in this video. So I'm just going to have a sip of my drink. Gosh, I like to talk. I'm in a talking mood today. It's raining outside. It's fucking horrible. So I thought, why not just, do this? So tips and tricks. I think we'll start with my first initial ideas of doing something like this was like, you've got to kind of ask yourself why. What is it about making a deck that really interests you? What is it about a deck Like, what is it that, whenever I get stuck on something, I'm always thinking about the why. Why did I start this project? Why am I doing this? And I kind of always keep that as like an anchor, that so I don't drift off into like on tangents and get sidetracked. And coming back to the why is really important, because it's going to keep you on task when your energy levels are low, when you feel like you've burnt out, or you don't know what you're doing. And coming back to the why, like what is it about this that you want to do? Because this is a huge commitment. This was 4 years of my life. And some tarot artists out there can whip up a tarot deck really quickly and do it in 2 months or even a year. And that's great for them. But for me, I wish. My style of art is very detailed, and, my work is very labor intensive. And for a lot of artists out there, they would already know that, because they see my work and they know, the process of art. And this video might touch on some things that are controversial, that could potentially upset someone, but that's not my intention. It's just my opinion and my truth that I've learned along the way, and I can explain why I feel the way that I do. So check yourself first. Are you up for something like this? Like, are you really legitimately wanting to put a lot of effort into something that could take you a long time? And then be realistic about that. So, if you don't have the time, like for me, probably about 2015, I kind of was like, I think I want to make a tarot deck. And it wasn't until probably to the end of 2016, around that time, I was like, yeah, okay, let's go. And by that stage, I'd kind of thought a lot about my sense of time, like how much time I actually have to dedicate to a project. You've got to kind of consider your energy levels. I tend to work in really explosive bursts of energy. Like, I'll come in and I'll attack it, and then I'll back off, and then I'll have a rest on the floor. Then I'll get back up and go back to my workstation. And whether you've got like a desk, or whether you've got a studio, whatever it is that you want to do, however it is that you choose to work, whether it's on your bedroom, on a sketchboard, on a tablet, whatever it is, there's no right or wrong. But be realistic about how much energy you have, because you don't want to have regret. You don't want to look back at something that you've put out into the world and be like, yeah, it's good, but I could have done better. You really want to be happy and proud with what it is that you do. So what we're looking for is kind of like a workflow management, and knowing your workflow management, knowing yourself, and knowing whether you've got the time to, legitimately do this, and then start moving in that direction. So I was thinking, like, when it comes to it, like thinking about the artist and you and your work and your creation. So when it comes to art is something that comes from a very deep and specific place. It is creation. And it's said that art is the closest vibrational match to magic and alchemy, because you're making something out of nothing. You're taking things in your head and you're bringing them into the physical world. And this would be great for a spiritual person, because that's what spirituality is. It's self-awareness. And as an artist, spirituality and art are so like connected, because your art is an extension of you. So when you pick up a tarot deck, whether it's my deck or whatever deck, you're picking up the artist's interpretation of these archetypes that we know. This is the traditional, Pamela Pixie deck, but it doesn't matter what it is. So say, for example, it may be Kim Kranz in The Wilds Unknown. It's got this kind of sketchy, scribbly boho feel to it. That's because the artist is very much like that. Rembrandt paintings are very complicated paintings. They're very detailed. They're very layered. They're very dramatic. So you could only imagine what is happening in his mind when he was doing his paintings. I hope I haven't lost you yet. I hope this isn't boring you. So really, I think the best way to start is probably start getting pictures and starting to think about what is it that you want to do, because everyone knows the archetypes of the tarot. Like everyone knows, like, so the Two of Pentacles, like everyone knows that. But thinking more about your style and what is it that you have to offer in regards to expressing that and thinking about what kind of medium you'd like to realistically work with. Like, do you want to do the drawings by hand like I did with a grey lead pencil? And then maybe you could clean up the images in Photoshop later, or maybe you have access to a graphic artist who could help you if you don't know what to do. And maybe you want to work with Photoshop and just all do a deck in Photoshop and just do photographic work where you've done all these photo shoots and now you're able to put them together and compile it into a tarot deck. That's something that people do as well. And it's whatever is a preference to, you know, the person. Like for me personally, I do not gravitate towards photo decks. That's, for me, it doesn't mesh well with me. It is very easy to just go on Google and just copy and paste images and compile an image. I find it more meaningful for me to draw an image from scratch and, you know, start off with a thumbnail, which we'll have a look at in a minute, and I'll explain what a thumbnail is. But maybe photos is your thing. Maybe you're a photographer. That's you know, that's your thing. Think about it. You know, do you want your deck to be in color? Do you want it to be in black and white? Or do you want there to be like pops of color in black and white to bring things out? So feeling about your style. Are you into animals? Do you want humans in your deck? Do you want no humans in your deck? And whatever works best for you. And we'll get into that a little bit later too. So there's just like so fucking much to consider when you're actually storyboarding and designing a tarot deck. There is so many layers. This is something that is very complicated. And one of the mottos that I have on my desk, which I've had for a while, is called, I've written, it's this. How do you eat an elephant? It's one bite at a time. That's how you do it. That's how you do anything. That's the trick. Whether it takes you 2 years, 3 months, whatever, it is one step at a time, okay? Cut the manic energy and know that if you just keep putting one foot in front of the other, it's more important that you start a project and keep moving than it is to just not move at all. I hope that helps make sense to you. Sorry, I'm just dropping something. I'm all over the shop. That's better. Yeah, so just one step at a time. So I know there's so much to consider, but the best place to start is this. It's a sketch pad. This is the perfect place to start. This is the place where it all starts. So nice, clean, white pad. And if you can't get that, get an exercise book, or, you know, you can get them for like 90 cents in a shop somewhere. And I write like little mantras, and I do scribbles and little pen drawings. And I think that is where I started. If you watch the intro video to my first deck, to my channel, I talked about at the start of this deck of making the El Goliath Tarot, I had a friend with me at the time, and we used to work really well together creatively. We had a really good working relationship together. We'd make things like out of paper mache or sculpture, or we'd do photo shoots. And he was very creative, just like me. We are no longer friends, but at the time we were best friends. And it was kind of like he'd bounce an idea off me, and then I'd bounce an idea off him. And that's actually where the El Goliath started. We went on a hike, we went out into nature, and I'd been thinking about a tarot deck, and then I went out into the forest, and I was like, I just want to make a tarot deck that is based on nature. And I came back and said to him, hey, what do you think about this? And together we kind of did some scribbles together where what you do is you do a grid. So it's just a grid system. If you're in art or graphics, you would already really know this. And it's really easy. And this is a really, really good place to start. So what you would do is, say, for example, you were thinking about, say, the Ace of Wands or something. And also, by the way, when you're doing any kind of scribble work to create a tarot deck, always think about like the feeling or the shape of the energy that you want to work with, because it could just be a filling or a shape, and then later that scribble could become something else. So, if it is the ace, you could have like just a wand. And we know, like, if you want to go for a traditional vibe, for me, I remember doing something kind of like this, where I was doing, the octopus that I wanted to do, and have little buds coming out here, or maybe some clouds up in here, and, having, ace, whatever it was. And kind of like this thumbnail is kind of where it all starts. And then I'd kind of like forget about that, and then I'd kind of go on to the next one, and the next one, and the next one. And then kind of what begins to happen is you create this kind of thing where all of the images kind of like fit together. They have the same aesthetic, they have the same feel. So obviously, if you're working as an illustrator, if you're doing the artwork yourself, don't worry so much about your artistic ability. Just kind of, it's more important to just focus on starting and kind of creating a shape or an idea, because perhaps you might take this to another artist who could work with you on this, or you could send this to someone online. I mean, these days you can do airdrop hangouts. And that was kind of like how I started it. And what I would do is I'd cut out that little square with a pair of scissors, and I put some sticky tape, and I'd sticky tape it up onto my wall on my desk. And then I just keep moving on to the next card until I got like, most people start with the major arcana, which is where I started. And go with the card that you feel most drawn to. So some people start with the Fool card, because it is, it is the first card, it's 0 in the tarot, and it kind of could represent that whole being and creating, taking a dive, taking a jump, starting a new project, starting a new journey. And that's a huge undertaking, and that could be the card that you start with. There are times where I had very set ideas. Like I knew for the moon card, I just wanted to do a really simple moon. And I just liked the idea of kind of playing with shadow around the moon. I didn't want to make it more complicated than that. There were times where I'd like want to do like a cliff edge, and then have like, have the lobster or the crayfish, or maybe have the wolf howling at the moon on one side, or, looking up at the moon, or whatever it was. But it kind of, some cards you may have that could be more complicated and harder to draw in storyboard. And if you're feeling stuck, don't worry about that. Just kind of move on to the next one and just go with what you feel. So maybe like for me, for the death card, I just knew that I always wanted a moth, because I knew that the moth represented cycles, and I knew that it was about rebirth, which is kind of like the moth energy to me. And then I kind of, from there, I kind of put this like chains that were hanging down, and one side had light hanging on it, and the other side had nothing, like that, like life and death. And then from there, it's like it grew, and it kind of became like I put in some deer horns at the top. And then after time I put a raven skull in. So it's kind of like it's always building on itself. Everything's building. And for me, I didn't want to, just do another copy. Oh, and by the way, guys, don't copy other decks. Look in yourself and think about what you have to say within you that is speaking. You don't want to listen to someone else's voice. Listen to your voice. It's your tarot deck. It's your project. Everyone's interpretation is different. Okay? Don't get too hung up on the final product. It's more this right here is the most important stage of doing any type of artistic work. This is gold. This stuff here ends up in portfolios when it's assessed in like universities and at high school or whatever, because it shows the stages that you went through to get to the result that you are, or the result that you get to in the end. It's kind of like the whole journey is what it is. Like, as for me, I did the major arcana, I think, all in pen. And the Algoliath was going to be all in this pen, this kind of scribbly pen work. But my art style is just more complicated than that. And I did, well, after I remember I stuck them all on the wall, and I was like, no, I think I can do better. I think I'm going to go with grey lead. So I pulled all the cards down, and by the way, this happens a lot. Sometimes I work on pieces that just don't work, and I could spend a week on something or a few days on something, and I know in myself that the direction that this has gone it's going to take more time to try and recover it. So I put that card away and I go onto something else on another one, as it's a lot easier to, I go with what I'm motivated to. And that's how I work as an artist. I go with what turns me on. So if you're not feeling the Ace of Wands, then just move on to something else. And also journaling is very important. And for me, I did all the artwork, and then at the end I wrote the guidebook, which ended up being, this took me a year to write. It is an 80,000 word guidebook. It's like a bloody novel. And so if I could go back in time, I probably would have done more keywords. I probably would have written keywords down or typed them along the side of the card that I was drawing. So for me, you get the planet, the element, the zodiac, and the stone. And then I would kind of put in more keywords. And one thing that I decided to do with my deck was that my deck was going to be a reflection of my experiences with the cards. And I also explained the creative process behind how I made the card. So for example, the Empress card, like I like the idea of having this beautiful peacock energy here. And I wanted it to be like a little bit macabre. And I didn't want it to be too gory. So I kept the embryo type, the fetus, kept that in there and then made it like an X-ray. Put in some symbols. And by the way, symbols are really important. Sometimes we don't really need symbols we don't really need to go over the top with symbols. Say, for example, in the traditional cards, which you could just use as a basis if you want to, if you so choose to go down the Rider-Waite-Smith path, is that you may just say, this is the Five of Wands. You might just keep 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You might just keep 5 wands. That could be, I've seen tarot decks for the Five of Wands, that's it. You've got these scrambled, even the shape and the lines of that, which we've taken from here, you can see that there's no unity there. If they were in unity, we'd have something like this, but they're not. They're all scrambled. So it's a scrambled energy that is not unified. So you could just go with the shape. That's generally how it could be. I hope that you're enjoying this video. I'm just gonna have a sip of this tea. Yeah, so I can't stress it enough. Whatever it is that you're doing as an artist, thumbnails are really everything. And because, if you're going for a traditional deck that has 78 cards, that's a lot of cards to draw. So breaking it down and simplifying things, so starting with the majors, putting them in order, and then kind of coming back and then redrawing and redoing is just how I did it, I guess. And sometimes I thought I'd finished a card, like I'll pick one, I thought that I'd done it, that was it, and then I'd come back and I'd be like, nope, that's not it. It doesn't feel right. So I hope that is making sense. And knowing that, look, whatever you do, whether you choose to do mystical animals or you choose to stick with the wands, the suits, like, earth, air, fire, water, and you have the different animals or magical, you might have lots of birds in your artwork. If you're dealing with, a certain suit that's to do with air, or you might have mermaids if it's to do with the suit of water. Keep it in a style that matches, because that will create unity when the cards are all placed side by side. And that is what creates this kind of cohesive feeling of having, like for me, it was always animals. And I wanted to do something that had not been done before. I'd never seen any tarot decks that were all just black and white, that were drawn, really, I believe, quite structurally, anatomically correct. And my work is very anatomically correct. If you go check out my work on Instagram, you'll see that when I draw a tiger, I like the tiger to look as real as possible. And that's just kind of my style. It's what I'm attracted to. It's what I like in decks. But I also like other styles of artwork. It's not to say that I'm just bound to one genre. But what I will say as a bit of advice is to stick with what you know. So if your style of artwork is, doing grey lead sketches that look like, the hood of a cobra, then do you. I guess that's what I'm saying. Just do you, because there's no use pretending to start a style of a tarot deck that you're trying to create if you can't follow that through all the way through. And so being realistic about your ability to understand the cards as well. So for me, it was easier because I am already, very spiritual. I was doing readings. I'm a medium. I'm very psychic. I do, it's just naturally who I am. And so for me, it was a lot easier because I was able to channel. And one of the things that started to happen as I was doing the deck, eventually what happens with all of this thumbnailing and storyboarding is that the deck starts to create its own consciousness. And that means that it starts to tell you as the artist or the creator or the designer what to do next. And that's kind of what happens when you're writing a story as well, or a book. The characters that you've created start to interact in their world, and that world starts to create a cohesive feel. And then we start to get connected to the characters. So when I remove the element of the human from the tarot, and we're only working specifically with the animal energy. So I've taken out, the concept of a human being in the deck, and now we're looking at what this animal, like what does, a white dove is peaceful and it represents justice. The cobra is, the hooded brother. It's a knight of swords. It's got a threatening energy to it. It can get shit done. So the Three of Cups, I went for a cohesive feel. We've got this group energy where they're all wearing the same helmet. So I started to think abstract. I started to think outside of the box. And how abstract you want to get is really up to you, I guess. I mean, some decks are very abstract, and I struggle sometimes to connect with them. And I like the challenge of working with a deck that is really making me look at the tarot from a different point of view. And then other decks kind of are very self-explanatory. They show me exactly what they mean. But I mean, so for example, the energy of the Death card, it is stark. It's black. You can see there's an element of finite to it. You've got this skeletal system, which represents bones. It's all very symbolic. Everything, I like to work with symbols. And I'm actually going to be working with sigils here as well. Here in the Justice card, the Judgment card, we've got this energy we see in the clouds here, we've got this kind of, like a God energy that's kind of shining down, and this purification that's happening through the water. And, trying to capture emotion. One of the things that I would say that works best with like comic books or any type of illustrating book, it's okay to be able to draw something anatomically correct, but can you feel something from it? Because when someone is using a tarot deck, they're connecting to their feelings and their emotions. It's not reading energy through a tarot deck is not logical, it's emotive. So if it's a strength card, I just stuck with the lion, and you can see like the lion's roaring, and we've got this taming energy in the cobra. So yeah, I hope this is all sinking in a little bit. So I would say start with you, go with what you feel, and just keep moving through. Don't stop. Do the grid system, come back to it. Let it speak to you, and let it find its sweet spot where it finds what it's doing and you've captured something. Now, I tend to work very explosively. I can come in, get the work done. Like I said before, it's more about quality for me than quantity. If I'm not in the right headspace, forget it. There's no point in doing any artwork today. I'll go do something else. I'll go find something else to do. I've got to work or whatever, because how I feel is how I create. So if I'm not feeling mentally well, my creativity is going to suffer. The product suffers, the work suffers, what I'm doing suffers. There's no separation, okay? Art is subjective, and art is subjective, it's not objective. And so when you are making something, you're creating something that has not been done before. You're like going through the forest, and you're like with a machete cutting through, this unknown place. You don't know where it's going to take you. You don't know what it's going to happen, but you have enough trust in yourself to know that you'll be able to pull this off and convey the message of what you're trying to project, like conceptually, because you trust yourself. And that's kind of like a perfect metaphor for life, is that we have to kind of trust ourselves enough to know, what we're doing. Now, if you are working with no color, you are going to have a very stark palette to work with, like I did, because I can only speak for the example of my own work. So, for example, the tower card, if we look here, I mean, could you imagine what this would look like in color? This would all be lit up. You've got this tree that's on fire. It's all burning. And we've got the birds, its eyes, there'd be lots of energy happening. The red and the black is kind of danger energy. And because I didn't work with color in the tarot in my deck, I have to rely on contrast and shade. So shading the back will bring the foreground forward. And any type of artist that's had training, or not even training professionally, but they would know how to, if you want to highlight something. What else have I got to say? I'm just thinking. I had a few things. I'm kind of just going through my head. I think, so I would also advise, if you're going to be doing a tarot deck, find a safe space within yourself and try and find a safe space within your work area. So when I say that, I mean, if you can, find a place that you feel that you can do your best work in. So if you've got a really loud housemate, or you've got people around you that are always noisy, that's probably not going to be the best, safest space for you when you've got someone coming past you, moving past you, working past you. For me personally, I need absolute silence to concentrate. No social media. I might have music going in the background, but when I'm doing the storyboarding, silence, because it's just me. So I keep my mind open. I try and open my heart. I try and open my mind. And I'm trying to align with the collective consciousness, because tarot has its own collective consciousness as well. We're dealing with a very powerful thing here. This is something that has been around for not only a very, very long time, but it also has its own energy. And so when you're tapping into that energy, you're allowing yourself as a medium or a channel to channel the message through you into your expression of what that could be, whether it's the moon, or whether it's the 6, 7 of swords, or the judgment card. And then we're translating through the relationship that we have of our understanding of what that card is. Because this is one thing as a medium, you can't pull from something that you don't know. I don't know what I don't know. So you can only go with what you know. There's no use pretending to know something if you just don't fucking know it. That's just stupid. It's not going to work. And, finding a space. So for me personally, I didn't have the funds. I didn't have the resources of having my own studio. I did the Algoliath Tarot from my bedroom. So I had a desk, and that desk was messy. It was neurotic, but I just made it work. And when I was able to stick up the artwork on the wall, I could see what I was creating was kind of looking back at me. And then I'd sit in bed and look at it and go, oh, okay, change that. Oh yeah, move that and do this. And so I would say that, you don't need anything fancy, but you need a space where someone isn't going to come and mess up your room or mess up your desk. Like, as an artist, when I have a studio, which I hope to have one day, is that no one else is coming into my space and fucking it up, because I'm the only one in the space and I'm the one that gets to work in it. I know where everything is, and I don't like other people touching my things when I'm in that creative process, because when you're in inspiration, you have seconds to minutes to act on that. You don't have a lot of time. It's like capturing a little like a little fairy or something in a little bottle, and you want to really grab it and milk it and use that energy, because tomorrow you might not be in that space, or something's happening, or you've got to go help your mum or do something. So if you can get a desk is very important. Get a decent chair to sit on, something that has good back support, because you're going to be at your desk for a long time, whether it's typing away at the guidebook or whether it's working on the artwork. You need to have a space where you are uninterrupted, and you might show a couple of friends what you're doing. Now, with showing people your work, I don't like to show people my artwork until it's finished. Okay, I don't, because what'll happen is, if you invite someone to critique your work, and most people, even without even knowing this, they critique artists' work without being invited to do so. And this is incredibly fucking rude, especially if the artist hasn't finished yet. So if say, for example, you don't like my work, that's totally okay. I don't like everyone else's work either. It's not my cup of tea. I don't have to shit all over it, but I do have to respect it. This is someone else's effort. It's their time, it's their blood, it's their sweat, it's their tears. And it tends to be the ones that can't create are the ones that try and shit all over other work, because artists we don't have time to like look at other people's work and critique their work. We're too busy focusing on our own work and actually making content and making the work. So that's a big difference there. So I would say, it's okay to not like my work. That's totally cool. But it's not okay to shit all over it and hate on my work when I haven't finished it yet. Let me finish it and then you can not like it. But just putting negative comments into an artist's head, it just paralyzes us. So I would say, if you are doing a tarot deck or you're undertaking a creative task, don't share your dreams with people that don't support them. There's no use in telling people what you're doing if you just know that they're not going to be a safe place for you. They're not going to build you up. They don't see the value in what you're doing. And so what's the point of telling them, So keep it to yourself. Keep your dreams sacred. Don't let other people just like stomp all over them. This is special. This means something to you. And if they don't understand that, then you've got the wrong friend. It's literally that simple. You need to say, have a great life, move on, get the fuck out of there. And that's where I'm at now. I'm 35 this year. And if, as an artist, as a creator, I have proven that I've been able to support myself from my own work. From the Algoliath Tarot, I was motivated to change my life and I did it. And if I can do it and I persevered, you can as well. So be honest with yourself. If people around you don't support your project, get them the fuck away from your project, get them the fuck away from you. Also as well, with people that I was telling when I was doing a tarot deck, a lot of people started to be like, oh, I want to do a tarot deck too. I want to make a book as well. Oh my God. It's kind of like, it does seem disingenuous and they're kind of trying to copy you or ride on your coattails of your wave. Let them. You're the one that is doing the project and it's your project, and you just stay in your lane and you focus on what you've got to do. Okay. Because in the end, the ones that really don't have the work ethic and the discipline are the ones that just don't get the work done. So there is a really real element here where it's like, a lot of people want the results, like they want the adulation, but they're not prepared to do the work to achieve the goals that they want. Like it's like saying they want to be a bodybuilder, but they just don't want to lift a single weight and go to the gym. It's just not realistic. And so push the boundaries of what's realistic, but have realistic expectations. And yeah, I hope that was a good point to put in there as well. So, the gods or the magical beings will not do for man what man will not do for himself. So have enough respect for yourself to know that sometimes there will be days where you feel like you don't want to do it, and that's okay. Don't do it. There'll be days where it's pouring through and you're getting downloads and you know what to do and you're in the right zone and you're feeling inspired and you're feeling motivated. Go for it. And there are days where it just doesn't happen. It's okay. It's just like anything. You got to be in the mood. Also, as well, if you can, I would say get involved with groups of people that share the same interests as you. So if you're into like a TV show, it's genuinely common that you'll find a Facebook group that will have people that also appreciate or share the same level of respect for what you're into. It could be cars. So getting around people that support your work. And if you feel comfortable sharing, hey guys, guess what? I'm making something. I'm making a book. I'm doing my art. And that's a really great way to build up a connection, because these people will help support your work as well in turn for when it finally comes out. And I was thinking, also as well, really take the time to learn the tarot, like learn what the cards mean. What does the Ace of Swords mean? Really learn what you're doing. There's no use in kind of going for an aesthetic of something if you don't understand the meaning behind it. So take your time, really take your time and find your style. And also, I've always thought it doesn't matter how much talent you have. If you don't have passion, then no amount of talent is going to save you from lack of passion, because the passion is the force that pushes things into the physical world. And that's something that is really important to always have, is just knowing why you're doing what it is that you're doing. So yeah, I hope that kind of made sense. Now, I will say there has been an issue that's been coming up, and I'm going to quickly address this as well. If you think that you're going to do a tarot deck like the Rider-Waite-Smith deck, which we all know it's a classic, it's, you know, the number one deck, it's the deck that everything's based off, and if you've decided to do a system of tarot that works off that imagery, which is fine, you are going to see that they're all white people. Okay, now I'm going to make this really clear. If you think that you're going to do a tarot deck and it's just going to be white people, no black people, nothing, no representation of anyone else other than one particular race of people, think again. Okay, that is not going to work. These days, that is absolutely unacceptable. Okay, we need to think about the people that are out there that are going to be interested in actually working with your work. And they need something to connect that work to. So if there's nothing in relation to them, they will not feel represented. And that is unacceptable. It's unacceptable behavior. Like this, like 20 years ago, 30 years ago, it was very common. 40, 50 years ago, it was all white decks. We're so sick and tired of seeing white decks, white people all the time with, you know, very cherubic kind of faces. You know, I go out of my way with my personal work to draw other people. Like I try to include as many people as possible. And that is why, and I'm very respectful for this. And now with my Owl Goliath Tarot, there has been some comments where people have said, oh, well, it's cultural appropriation, okay, like with drawing animals or drawing, you know, here we go with the, you know, Native American artwork. Yes, it is okay. And I'm going to explain why. My deck, before I did this, I had to really think about the animals, or knowing that I wasn't going to have humans, knowing that you would rely more on the totem animal energy or whatever, is that the Goliath borrows from a whole multitude of different religion, like there's some Aztec, we've got a whole variety. We've got Hindu, we've got Kabbalah, we've got native shamanistic, we've got so many different, I tried to include in my tarot as many, like we've got a little bit of Hindi, we've got some Islam in there. I put as much as I could in there so that it would, even though it only had animals, it still had references to all different cultures. It wasn't just coming into one category. So that way it would appear to more people and it would be more diverse, and diversity is very important. And I don't need to divulge my native indigenous heritage because that's my personal truth, and I don't have to tell anyone about my family or my ancestors. That is personal. But I absolutely really thought long and hard about the depictions of how I wanted to do. Like some of the cards are very primal. Like there's no, like I didn't want to have in my deck, which you might think of as well if you're choosing to do animals or whatever, I didn't want to have animals doing human things. In fact, I did include animals wearing like, you know, crowns of thorns or stuff like that, but I didn't want to have like an animal performing something that's a human feat, because that's not, I wanted this deck to be more shamanic in nature, and that's what I went for, even if it was, you know, the add-ons or whatever. So really think about the diversity, because, you know, inclusion, I actually had a lot of feedback on this card as well, which was the Hierophant, where I included all of these religious symbols as well. So this deck, my deck personally, has so many different, it's like a magpie. It kind of pulls from so many different things to kind of mishmash them all together. So there's no, it's got a cohesiveness to it, but it doesn't have like a thing where it's just like bound to one particular deity or archetype or climate, or I mean, well, social climate, or, and also as well, in the artist's defense, we can't have the artists, like if you're doing a tarot deck or a painting or whatever, don't, like, you can paint whatever the fuck you want, okay? You have the right to create whatever it is that you want, but you do have to show, you know, in a way that's respectful to other people what you've done. And if it's coming from the right place, it's coming from a place of love, it's not going to hurt anyone, it's not there to upset anyone, it's just there because that's what you wanted to do. And as an artist, that's what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to push boundaries, we're supposed to be free, we're supposed to do what the fuck we want, and that is exactly what I recommend. If you feel like drawing, you know, that porcupine upside down with an arrow through its eye, go for it. Whatever it is that you like, as an artist, art is a expression of your interpretation of something, and it also, all art builds on art. So without certain decks, it wouldn't have happened, like the Marielle Tarot or the Wild Unknown Tarot. My deck probably wouldn't have happened, and after the El Goliath is gone, another deck will appear after that. And that's what art does. Art is a reflection of culture and society mirrored back and shown back to, you know, through your interpretation. So I think that kind of is a lot to chew on. I think I've put a lot in that first part of this video. The second part of this video, I'm going to try and keep a little bit shorter, and I will be looking at the publishing side, which is like digitizing your artwork, making sure it's in the right DPI, uploading it, scanning it, what programs you'll need, maybe, you know, the best direction to go from there if you're up to that next stage, and you've done the guidebook, you've done the journaling, and you're ready to take it to the next level, and you're ready and you're really, really happy with the artwork that you've put in. Then the next part of this video will be more based on the marketing and the projection and how to get it out there and working on the bleed line. So I will do this video this week, and next week, the following week, part 2 I will do. I hope that you've enjoyed this video. There's a lot of content in this video. I really hope that if you're out there, this helped you. I just want it to be, I just want to help. And if you'd like to pick up a copy of the El Goliath Tarot deck, we still have some copies left of the second edition. It is out, and it is available on Amazon. It is shipping worldwide, and it is also available on my main website, which is www.theelgoliathtarotdeck.com. Links will be in the description below. Please find me on Instagram. If you have any questions about anything that I've said today, you know where to find me, and I reply. Slide me a DM and I will get back to you, and I will see you in part 2 of this video series on how to make a tarot deck, tips and tricks. Have a good week. Bye.